Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Well, welcome back again. At this point, we usually go around and say our names, and to keep from doing that lickety-split, we'd like to just either pause, or if you have a word or two you'd like to add afterwards, that would be appreciated and appropriate. So I'll just start, and then we'll go around, and then we'll have our speaker who I'll introduce in a minute. So, my name is Chris.
My name is Howard Deeport.
My name is John Wessel.
I'm Len.
Sully.
My name is Philip.
I'm Bill.
I'm Peter.
I'm Rob.
My name is Manuel.
George.
Robin.
Greg.
Marvin.
My name is Bill.
I'm Mike.
Michael.
My name's Stuart.
Peter.
My name's Tom. My name's Steve.
My name is Ray Dyer.
I'm Richard Azzolini.
I'm Scott.
My name is Tom Bruin.
My name is Jerry Jones.
Douglas Hall.
Tatuan.
Harvey. Jim.
My name is Jim Stewart.
Peter. My name is Don. Richard.
My name is Tony.
Did we miss anyone? Is anyone here for the first time? Well, as usual, I'd ask everyone to help our newcomer feel welcome. So let me then introduce Jana Drakka as our speaker today. And, or I should say, Reverend Jana entered formal Buddhist practice 16 years ago at the San Francisco Zen Center and received Dharma Transmission this year. She leads the Street Zendo at 234 Hyde Street, where meditation practices of all kinds are welcome. And she's a practice leader at the Gay Buddhist Sangha. Reverend Drakka is a community activist, particularly for the rights of the poor and disenfranchised, and believes that mindfulness is a 24/7 practice. Every Gay Pride weekend, you'll find Jana offering an opening blessing from the trans stage. For more about her, she has a website at Jana Drakka, that's JanaDrakka.com. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, please.
Thank you very much. Anna, how lovely to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. I kind of feel like I've been here before, but I haven't actually. I don't know why no one ever invited me. I think I ended up inviting myself.
Nobody wanted you.
But my teacher, Zenkei Blanche Hartman, has spoken here before and said you were all quite wonderful. So I bring greetings from Blanche. And I always dedicate my talks to at least one of my heroes. And today I'm thinking of Isan Dorsey, who is definitely one of my heroes, who I feel opened the door and kept it open to Buddhism, to many, many of us who would not have felt acceptable in this practice without Isan. So if you don't know anything about him, you could read Street Zen. It's a great read, all about Isan's life. But I always dedicate my talks to him, at least. So I just got this stick. It's like those T-shirts you get, 16 years of Buddhist practice, and all I got was this stick. But it is a very nice statement. I became on the 30th of April, I became your newest baby ancestor. So I hope that's a great encouragement to everybody, because basically it's the Isan theory. You know, if Isan can do it, if I can do it, everybody can do it. So it's just an encouragement. It basically means that, well, what does it really mean? It's very hard to say, but it's mind-to-mind transmission. Traditionally, the Buddha, the Shakyamuni Buddha, the historical Buddha that you know of, needed to pass on the Dharma. And you may know the story when he was on Vulture Peak and held up a flower, and Mahakashapa smiled. So he was the only one that really got it. So that was the first Dharma transmission, that was the first mind-to-mind transmission. And in formal Buddhist practice, that's how the practice is passed along. So then Mahakashapa would pass it to someone else, and then they would pass it, basically he to him, and him to him, and him to him, and him to him, till it got to my teacher in our lineage, who's the first woman in our lineage. In traditional Buddhism, women are not often very well respected. If you read older teachings, we're described as sacks of shit. We're told that women can never become enlightened. We have to wait till the next time round when we have one of those wonderful male bodies, and then we can actually get enlightened. There's some wonderful literature around this. But Dogen, you may have heard of Dogen, a very poetic and wonderful writer on Buddhism. He, in a nutshell, says male, female, no difference. And that's the way I feel. Male, female, no difference. In fact, as you mentioned, I'm one of the practice leaders for the Gay Buddhist Sangha. They just took men out of the title. But it was the Gay Men's Buddhist Sangha when they invited me to be one of their teachers. And I almost wore today my other honorary robe, which is a T-shirt they gave me, which says on it, Honorary Gay Man. So that's why they keep having me there to teach something, because I fit in. And just one other thing about what you mentioned. The one thing that is out of date is that I have a Zendo at 234 Hyde Street. Unfortunately, a couple of weeks ago, my association with the Faithful Fools ended, and I no longer have a meditation hall to sit in. I have 2 or 3 sittings a week in various places, but that was my home base up until a couple of weeks ago. So I'm looking for a new meditation hall, and I think I'd like this one, if that's It's very nice. It's a lot bigger than the one I had before. Thank you very much. I actually would be interested in talking to someone about having sittings. My practice since I left Zen Center about 1.5 years ago has been mainly focused, as was mentioned, on low-income people, homeless people, those of us who are close to being homeless people. All of us are in sort of interesting financial circumstances right now. So my focus for some reason developed with people who often don't have access to services, or actually who don't feel welcome in traditional Buddhist practices. That was what was handy about having the Zendo, because it was right in the middle of the Tenderloin, and then people could just walk in off the street and learn to meditate and sit down. However, the other part of my practice is very practical, and that's what I wanted, I think, to talk about today. I work a lot, 2 days a week. I work for Tenderloin Housing Clinic now. And Tenderloin Housing Clinic has 15 large hotels in the city where formerly homeless people live. So I go into the hotels and now do one-on-one counselling with people, support groups, grief groups, all that kind of thing. So that's wonderful. That just began recently. And I run meditation groups in the hotels whenever they request them. And then the other side of that is that because there's just myself doing it, I realised I needed to work with the people who worked with the people. So I also work at places like UCSF. I trained 300 therapists there last year at a conference on how to meditate in a very practical, down-to-earth way. I've worked with groups there such as caregivers for Alzheimer's patients. So I find the Buddhist way, and in particular our way of meditation, to be incredibly, incredibly practical. Very useful, very down to earth. I mean, this kind of thing, the Dharma Transmission and getting the little ceremonial, this is the teaching stick, getting all these little things is lovely and thrills me and has deep meaning to me because I'm from a very poor background and I am genderqueer, and here I am in America and wow, I managed to hang in long enough and become one of the ancestors, and now I can share all of those secret teachings with everybody, so it's great. However, what's Buddhism about in our everyday lives? I mean, is it just something with admittedly beautiful accessories and nice places to sit and so forth? Is it just something we do for a wee bit of relief, every now and then? Or is it something that's completely involved, that in fact is the basis of your everyday life? Dogen says that to think that practice is separate from everyday life is to not understand practice. There's been an enormously beneficial practice personally, and I feel that's why I'm so inspired to share it with people. I began this particular kind of practice 16 years ago when I had severe post-traumatic stress disorder caused by an extremely abusive relationship. And every day was a grey day, my health was going, my immune system was shot to pieces. I couldn't remember whether I had clean clothes on or not. I couldn't remember to feed myself. I was classified as permanently disabled. I couldn't seem to get my feet on the ground at all. Sometimes you feel like you're standing firmly and you're surrounded by storms, but somehow the storms just carried me away and I was lost. And I had used meditation in various forms over the years, but didn't know would it help in these circumstances, but that's somehow what I did. I went to Zen Center and became a guest student, which is a great thing because that way you don't have to have much money. And eventually the practice began to help. At first meditating, there's a reason the mind forgets things and pushes them away. So the first while of meditating, staying right here, which was not what I was used to. I was more used to going off to a nice flowery hillside and, looking at the view or something. But to stay here, in the middle of everything that was going on, was really new for me. And at first it was very, very painful. And I always have to remember that when I'm working on the streets, because facing up to what's going on can be quite difficult. And you need tools right away. You need to have methods in hand, so to speak, to deal with it. But eventually, staying with what was painful and getting through it that way proved much more effective than what we usually do, which is to try and avoid it. Oh, I don't like that. But actually, if you face right into the pain and look at it and study it, then you can go through it, you can allow the pain to go. So I realized that this methodology was actually really, really useful. Even if you take the example of a painful knee when you're sitting. When I was at the monastery, I used to think, I tried all kinds of things, and 4 cushions on that side, and then that didn't work, so I wrapped a cloth round to hold my knees up, and that didn't work. And finally, one day, someone said to me, "You can't get through the pain by avoiding it." And I thought, "Oh, right. You can't get over your hand burning, so don't take it out of the fire." Right. That's those Zen practices that you hear about that puts you off Zen. Here I am with my hand on fire, but I'm fine. So that really didn't seem practical. But then I realised, I tried it. And actually, if you move your focus of attention during meditation from your breathing to wherever physically hurts, and use that for your focus of attention, it's a very interesting practice. You should try it. What happens eventually is that the pain dissolves. Now, if I ever get invited back, we could actually do a whole session on that, and I can teach you all how to do that, because it's the most practical, down-to-earth form of meditation I've ever discovered. So I'm basically all about taking our practice out the door with us. I mean, what good would this practice be if you could only do it while you're sitting staring at the ground? You're in the middle of an argument. "Oh, hang on, I'll just go and stare at the ground and I'll get right back to it." It's 24/7. It was taken out originally from the monasteries by things like the tea practice. Rikyu, the tea master, the tea ceremony used to be done in beautiful porcelain cups and in the finest of chinas, and only the aristocrats practiced tea ceremony. But it was actually inspired by Buddhist monks drinking their tea very carefully to stay awake. And Rikyu made it available to the everyday person by a complete mistake, which is where our most great inspirations often come from. He was firing some porcelain teacups one day, and he overdid it, and they crackled, and all the glaze was cracked, and he took them out and thought, "Oh, I'll have to throw these away, no use." And then he looked again and he thought, actually they're quite beautiful. And so he began gradually to take this on and to bring tea ceremony down to everybody's level, literally. Instead of a fine tea house, he had a 2-tatami hut made of straw, and the door was only this high, so that supposing you were the emperor or the lowest commoner, you had to get down on your knees and go in through this door into the hut. So there's many examples of how our practice began to spread out the way. The flower arranging, for example. I can highly recommend the Book of Tea, written in 1906, to get some insight into how this all began to spread amongst Western people. Now, every time I talk, you may have noticed I'm not reading anything. The very first time someone asked me to give a talk, I wrote copious notes. I wrote it all up. And it was a beginner's sitting at San Francisco Zen Center. And I sat there and I was so scared, because you don't want to misspeak the Dharma. You don't want to say anything that's not right. So I sat there and carefully read every word. And I kept looking up and everybody's kind of... So the next time I wrote it out again, but then I sat on it. No, it wasn't some new learning method. I heard you thinking that. I thought, well, if our practice is about... Firstly, we always have to practice on ourselves before we can actually reach out and help someone else. So if our practice is about learning trust and having faith in what? That's another talk, but faith and trust that just this, in this moment, right here, is all that we need. And the faith that just being in this moment can relieve a lot of the stresses that we feel, a lot of the anxieties we feel. So simple faith in the moment. And so therefore, wouldn't that include what you said? Why should I look up, what other people said and then quote that? Surely that's just because, funny, the English language, it's hard to speak without saying I, but the I would just simply be feeling insecure about what I was saying. Surely, if we're studying and working and really using the practice, then we have to have faith that what comes out is worth listening to. And that what comes out shouldn't be prejudged. After all, that's the way to stay in the moment. If I'm thinking about it and writing it all down beforehand and then I'm reading, it's dead. It's something that's already happened. So every time I speak, what you hear is absolutely unique and original, and if it's not taped, it's gone. So nothing ever written down. And what I do is I bring some friends. And I had thought, there was a thought had come to mind, I admit, that everyday Buddhism was really what I wanted to talk about, or what should be talked about. So I brought the Buddha, Dhammapada, and Suzuki Roshi, just because he's such an inspiration. And then one of my other completely favourite people, Alan Watts, one of our ancestors that hasn't been put in the lineage yet and should be. And something on Wabi Sabi, which I think is really just a commercial for the next time. So I wanted actually to do a couple of bits of reading. I'm not fond of doing much reading while I'm talking, but there were a couple of things that sprang out of the book the last time I looked at it. One was actually on the what is called original Buddhism. The reason this one sprang to mind was that I was worried that people would think I was just about Zen. And although I'm in the Soto Zen lineage, there's no way that I'm just about Zen. In actual fact, I'm also a Wiccan priestess. The name Jana Drakka is Jana, that's Diana, the moon goddess. And Drakka is the root word for dragon, which is transformation. So I'm not stuck on Zen. It was just very hard to find anyone who still did the old Wiccan priestess training. And the roots are the exact same. The roots of our Buddhist teachings and the roots of the Wiccan or pagan teachings are the same. But that's another talk. So just to allay any worries about Zen, this sprang to mind. Usually people put emphasis on some particular position or some particular understanding of Buddhism, and they think, this is Buddhism. But we cannot compare our way with the practices people normally understand. Our teachings cannot be compared to other teachings of Buddhism. This is why we should have a teacher who does not attach to any particular understanding of Buddhism. The original teaching of Buddha includes all the various schools. As Buddhists, our traditional efforts should be like Buddha's. We should not attract to any particular school or doctrine. That. So, a wee quick one on non-attachment. They're calling out to me. And this one I like to skip through the Dhammapada. There's so many wonderful things in it. And this is when I thought of meeting everyone for the first time today. This one sprang to mind. How joyful to look upon the awakened, and to keep company with the wise. Follow then the shining ones, the wise, the awakened, the loving, for they know how to work and forbear. But if you cannot find friend or master to go with you, travel on alone. Like a king who has given away his kingdom, like an elephant in the forest. If the traveller can find a virtuous and wise companion, let him go with him joyfully and overcome the dangers of the way. Follow them as the moon follows the path of the stars. How joyful to look upon the awakened. Now this, of course, is very much about everyday Buddhism. One mistake that I notice a lot of people make is to think that they have somewhere to go to become awakened. That you're not actually enlightened right now. And that's a big mistake, because you are. Suzuki Roshi says, you're all perfect the way you are, and you could all use a little improvement. But everybody can get down with the second part of that statement. We could all use a little improvement. But how about you're perfect just the way you are? If you're not perfect just the way you are, isn't that kind of a mistake? Because right now, this moment, could you be something else? Could there be a different you right now? So what is it? It's a good question in meditation. What is it about yourself that you're not accepting in this moment? That's the other reason that this practice has been so wonderful for me. I know some of us, maybe just one or two of us, are a bit self-critical. And that is actually just not acceptance, isn't it? Just not accepting basically how you are. And it's kind of silly because you can't do anything about it. I realised a few years ago I'm never going to be a short, thin, blonde woman. In fact, if I put a dress on, I look like a drag queen. I wore a dress for Gay Pride weekend, and I went to a women-only event, and I walked in, and usually people throw me out of the women's restrooms and shout at me and all this kind of thing. And I walked in, and people smiled, and I thought, how wonderful. And then they kept smiling, and then I thought, no one's looking at me like I'm an attractive woman. They're looking at me like I'm a drag queen. I really felt that. There was none of that reciprocity you get with women, none of that. Nobody chatted to me. It's either that or suddenly I realised I'm really ugly. But that self-acceptance, let's move back to self-acceptance. I think it's, again, one of the most basic parts of our practice, the self-acceptance, because in the end, everything will go. There's no one getting out of here alive. And what's the most important thing? How can you live with joy and ease, with things just as they are, just exactly as they are? That's the important question. And I've got just about 5 minutes. I want to talk very quickly about living with things just as they are, because, as I say, I believe that's the most important part of our practice, and the way that we can be at ease with ourselves. So let me just talk about practicing with this in meditation, which of course is a 24/7 thing. Now, if I look at this object here, say I'm meditating, and I see this object. Now, I found the most peaceful way to be is to see the object and leave it like that. Contact. Bare contact. Now, when you're meditating, something will arise. A thought will arise. Can you leave it alone? Because after the thought arises, the next thing that happens is, oh, I want that. No, I don't want that. And then you start to decide what it is, and then, all these feelings arise about it, and then you get so you're way over here. But in actual fact, can you keep it right here? Now, I'm not talking about suppressing thoughts. The mind secretes thoughts like the body secretes sweat. It's just what it does. But can you let them just go on? Can you not get involved? In other words, can you really stay away from discursive thinking? That kind of thinking is only useful if you're actually reading something and you're trying to understand it, or you're working on an academic paper and you're trying to figure it out. Then it's useful. But the usual thinking that goes on when you're walking along the street, you must have noticed it's not very earth-shattering. You know, I mean, I sat for 3 years in a monastery. Nothing, just meditation. And I can't think of one great, wonderful, earth-shattering vision that came up in those 3 years. It was mainly things like, he said that, and he wasn't nice to me, and you know, I don't think I should. But it was very rarely anything wonderful. So that thinking, that constant is really not that worth paying attention to. So that's where this meditation practice comes in really handy and can be a lifesaver. Personally, I think it was life-saving for me. Can you leave it alone? Can you leave it at just contact so that your experience of the world is always fresh? It makes things fresh and exciting. I'm saying contact because even if I think cup, first of all, I'm out of the moment, and that moment's gone. And cup, to get the word cup, I had to reflect, I had to look into memory, and I had to come up with an object that matched that object as well as I could. And then I've got the word cup, and then cup. But that's already a few steps gone in the process. So when I'm working with people, and I work with people, for example, who are addicted to various substances, we all are. We're all stuck on something that keeps the world away. You know, what is it? Donuts or bad relationships? Something that'll keep you all busy. You know. So even if you're working with something as involving as a bad relationship or crack or smack or any of the others. I have worked with this successfully with people actively using speed. I work with San Francisco AIDS Foundation sometimes in the Speed Project. So this isn't something that's impossible. This isn't something that only holy people that wear brown things or black things or... This is something that I know for sure that everybody can do. And it's the biggest relief from suffering. I think that's what they're all talking about. Is can you keep it right here? Because, to be honest, if you're all caught up in all this, you're missing your life. Because that's not real. That's just thinking. This is real. That's real. Somehow. In some way. We don't really know how. But don't miss your life. There's a whole world of grace and beauty beyond thinking. Thinking is what obscures the beauty and joy in every moment. So I just want to give some encouragement on that very first basic part of our training, to be able to be here with whatever is going on. Just here. Not anywhere grand, just here. Well, I want to give plenty of time for talking, and I think Suzuki Roshi had one more thing to say. Okay, can anyone see the glasses? Are they on my head? Oh, isn't that a good one? You know that one. Where's my glasses? See, accepting the imperfections, all the little things, because this is as young as you're going to be, don't forget. You have to appreciate it while you have it. I've just encountered the first part of me that won't obey my own instructions anymore. You noticed I came in with a cane. 2 weeks ago, my right foot stopped working. Right? And it's so hard to cope with. I mean, physically it's hard to cope with, but see how they are. The emotions arising from the fact that I can't lift my foot and swing it properly anymore. That's the most difficult part, you know? I live near the beach. I walked down there the other day and I stood there and I almost just broke down crying because I can't. How could you walk on the sand? How could you walk on the sand with a cane? So this is the youngest you're going to be. That's why we have to appreciate what we have right now in the moment, because it is all going to go. I mean, that's what the Buddha was talking about: old age suffering, you know, old age sickness and death, you know. So, didn't mean to bring make everyone miserable. I played sports my whole life, and when these little things started to go, I went to the doctor, and she said to me, "Oh, what are you complaining about? You've had good use out of this body." I was like, "Oh, okay." But then, you know, it does give you that attitude of, this is the container this time. You know, who is it who's actually sitting here talking to you? You can see this container, but what's living in this body? What's living in that body? It's very interesting. So it's not a detachment from the fact that this is, you know, gravity is winning and all the rest of it, but I'm interested. I'm interested to watch it. I think it's the practice that can keep us here and even find joy in it. You know, I've never felt better about myself because I don't allow myself to go into all these self-destructive thinking patterns that we have. Anywho, Dogen Zenji. No, I wanted to read the very end. Yes. So here, that I was trying to, I think it was encouraging words. I hope they were encouraging. And here's Suzuki Roshi's final words from Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. I feel Americans have a great opportunity to find out the true way of life for human beings. You're quite free from material things, and you begin practice with a very pure mind, a beginner's mind. You can understand Buddhist teaching exactly as he meant it. But we must not be attached to America or Buddhism or even to our practice. We must have beginner's mind free from possessing anything, a mind that knows everything is in flowing change. Nothing exists but momentarily in its present form and colour. One thing flows into another and cannot even be grasped. Before the rain stops, we hear a bird. Even under the heavy snow, we see snowdrops and some new growth. And the final words of this great book on Buddhism. In the East, I saw rhubarb already. In Japan, in the spring, we eat cucumbers. So I'd like to say thank you very much for allowing me to speak. And we have time now for questions, discussion. Anyone who'd like to speak? Yeah.
So I have a question about when you experience your foot not working. For myself, my emotions seem to just kind of overtake me without having a conscious ability to stop and detach or just let them be. I sort of get into the mind frame of the negative thinking ahead of time. Do you find that happening to yourself?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Of course you're going to feel negatively about that. I mean, for me it was terrifying. My strokes run in my family. And, they immediately rushed me off to see if that's what was happening, which it doesn't look like it was. No, I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with feeling our fear. You know, it's said, what does a monk offer the world? And it's fearlessness. And it's not fearlessness because you don't feel fear. You feel your fear and then you choose to go on ahead. That's the important thing. You know, I think to stuff down our emotions will lead us straight to the therapists. And you know, what is it? 80% of people are on antidepressants and anti-anxiety medicine in America. No, I think it's absolutely fine to see the pain and then step forward, because that gives you compassion. That gives you connection. I think it's great to share our vulnerabilities, because those are the ways we connect. I mean, it's hard to connect with someone who's so perfect and everything's always fine. But it's a good way to connect. Yeah. As long as you don't get overwhelmed. Thank you. Yes?
I have a hard time distinguishing truth from fiction a lot of the time. And my mind kind of has me brainwashed into thinking every thought is truth, you know. And so if I start questioning everything I think, then things become very unstable, because my whole life is based on things I've come up with, and I believe my thoughts and what I've accomplished is taking me to where I am today, and so the whole thing's built on my own actions, and I've had determination in my own destiny, and so it's like a foundation of truth that brought me here, basically. But then if I start questioning everything, it's kind of like, it's very difficult, because there's this whole brainwashed sense of what's real and what's not real, but there's not a whole lot of truth, really, I guess. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, you said it. But I'm not saying that you have to question everything, because that would be like throwing a stone in the pond to stop the ripples. You know, you don't have to question everything. Things will come to mind. You may like to see what it feels like to hold it a little more lightly. That's all. You don't have to question it. It's just fine. Well, if you feel, you know, that's a positive mind state, that's absolutely fine. You don't have to change it. I would suggest try holding it a wee bit more lightly, because the things that we are convinced are the truth and the only way to do it are the walls that we live behind. You know, this is the only way. This is the only way. So then you just continually go up the same path. And although it can be frightening to say, maybe there's another way to do this, it can be a bit edgy feeling, but it's an opening. So just hold it lightly. It's okay.
I just want to say I really appreciate you trusting yourself as living text. I come here occasionally to meditate and really feel the oneness, and I sometimes get lost because I don't study Buddhism in terms of 13 of this and 4 of that. And what I like is when each person considers themselves a living extension of universal text. And thank you. I felt very connected to you.
Thank you. I think we all have that. I believe strongly that we can, you know, we say we look inside to find the answers, and given that there's no inside and no outside, then we're actually all connected, and that's what's so important. Yeah. Yes.
What the other benefit from doing meditation?
Well, it's interesting, you know, traditionally we say there are no benefits, we're not doing it for anything. But the side effects are quite wonderful. I think it improves your life in every way. But to be more specific, a couple of months ago I went to Auckland, where Thank goodness they're starting to teach it in schools for little children. And that was just wonderful to go into the classroom and see on the board, history, geography, mindfulness, algebra. It was just wonderful. And what the reason for that is, on a practical level, that in test results of children who meditate every morning, or mindfulness every morning, or once a day, even for 5 minutes, their test scores go out of range. Their reading, their math, everything. So one side effect is your concentration will greatly improve. Another side effect is your immune system will improve, because there's just a direct physical relationship between stress. When you even thinking of something stressful, oh my God, I lost my job 2 weeks ago. I did. Oh, I lost my job 2 weeks ago. Already, here's the stress. The mechanism goes into function, fight or flight. Fight or flight is produced by adrenaline being released in the body. If you don't do anything practical with the adrenaline, like run away from the saber-toothed tiger, the adrenaline goes into the liver, chemicals are affected in the liver, and your immune system goes So if you remove or ameliorate the stress in your everyday life, your immune system picks up again and actually functions better. So there's two big ones that I think of right away. I would say for me, the first arising on the path traditionally is joy. And I would say that was one of the big benefits personally.
I mean, I used to do many position, even the sleeping, it can be the meditation as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you walk, I mean, I'm from Thailand anyway, and I did many meditation. Yeah. And the potential thing they said is also can bring the merit to the ancestor.
Right.
Because you never know, in the past life what you had done to the other people.
Right.
So this life you reborn.
Right.
And once you do meditation, it means you
clear it.
Yeah, you you sacrifice, you do the good thing for them, and to recognize the thing in the past.
Right. Now that's something that you know about, that not a lot of people in the West, in America, they don't really know about that. And it's not something I teach about that much, because a lot of people are very suspicious of people in black robes and doing traditional things. And you mentioned karma in America, and people are very, the only talk I've ever heard on karma from an American priest, he only talked about karma in this lifetime. I've never heard, or rarely heard, any American priest talk about lifetimes and how it goes on into lifetimes. And merit, in fact, most Zen talks or Buddhist talks you go to, they dedicate the merit to somebody or other. But that's not a concept very well known either.
I emphasize, two benefits for the people who did meditation.
Yeah.
It's also, reflects to the people that.
Well, I sat with Ed Brown. Some of you may know Ed Brown, and I've been running his group for a few weeks, and I'll do it again next month. And they end every sitting by chanting this sound, "Go." And while they're doing that, they bring to mind anyone they want to send the merit or just the feeling that we've given rise to. And that's a nice practice. When I had my Zendo, we did that once a week with a well-being ceremony too, and we did it every time we finished a chant. So, anyway, that's another talk. It's a very interesting subject.
I do need to be a nasty timekeeper and see if we can
Yes,
wrap this up.
Yes.
So, there's one more very short question. Okay, thank you.
A short question. I tend to ruminate. like I have a thought, like, you know, label it thinking and try to move to the next moment, then I have the same thought. It just tends to cycle. Do you have any advice?
No, I think you're doing just fine to notice it. Once you keep noticing it over and over, they do tend to fade down. I also am available if anybody wants one-on-one practice discussion, because everybody's at their own place. So that's also available.
Well, I'd like to thank John.
Thank you.
Well, now I'd like to ask, is there a host today?
Yeah, my name is Bill. I'm the host. So there's some coffee cake and strawberries out there that you can help yourself to. If you have some tea, please wash out your cup before you leave. I'll be coming around with the Dana bowl. The suggested donation is $5 to $8, and please remember that your contributions help fund this Sangha. It didn't seem like any of you except our speaker is new to the group, but just as a reminder then, we have a newsletter out there. We also have a directory, and if you'd like to receive the newsletter and you don't already, or you want to be in the directory, you can sign up for that right outside on the sheet. And lastly, if you don't have any plans for lunch and you want to join in, usually a group informally gets together around 12:30 and goes somewhere locally. So just present yourself at the front door and join in.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Are there any other announcements, Jack?
Yeah, Michael asked me to announce again that we're having our fall retreat on September 18th to the 20th. The theme is cultivating loving kindness toward ourselves and others, and it's a beautiful Vajrapani, and enrollment is quite robust already. So if you're thinking about it, sign up soon, because it's not infinitely expandable. And Michael has a team of people who are putting together this retreat. He's come up with a great formula for the past couple of retreats, and they've been very special. So I highly encourage you to think about coming. And these sheets are out there by the Dana bowl.
Okay, so retreat coming up. And
Yes, I'm very pleased to announce that the last quarter at the community store, we made $370. So I want to encourage people to continue to bring donations there. It's at 623 Valencia Street. It's painted various shades of Pepto-Bismol pink. You can't miss it. You might check their website because there's a number of things they don't accept, but they do take donations every day from 10 to 5. So, and just tell them that it's for GBF when you do make the contribution, the donation rather.
okay. And there's some.
I'd like to bring people's attention to a film that's currently playing called Burma VJ. The VJ stands for video journalism, and it concerns the monks' demonstration in Rangoon a couple years ago. It's currently playing both in Berkeley and I believe the Lumiere here in the city. It's quite remarkable. You see Buddhism in action. Well, see it.
Well, Reverend Drake, thank you for your presentation today. It's been quite delicious. I have a title for your next talk.
What's that?
Donuts and Bad Relationships.
Oh, that's wonderful.
But hopefully you're available this fall. We have a few openings and we'll be talking with you.
I would love to. Thank you.
I'd love to have you back for certain. Our speaker next week will be the oral transmission of the Sangha in open discussion. We gather and break into small groups. We transmit. Into one another.
Any other announcements? No? All right, let's stand in a circle and go on. truth of this practice, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all never be separated from the sacred happiness which is without sorrow. And may all live in equanimity without too much attachment or too much aversion, and live believing in the equality of all that lives.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.